Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. In Sanskrit, the word vyasana means to be addicted. Vyasana. An addiction is when we depend on an article. It could be sugar, it could be a certain blanket, it could be money. That's an addiction. Now, how does one free themselves of an addiction? It is through vyasa. There's similar sounding words. Vyasana, vyasa. Vyasa means elaboration. One who takes what we take for granted and elaborates on that so that we don't take that for granted. Sharing this in a more straightforward way. The more that one hears about and thinks about divinity, one starts to depend on divinity and becomes independent of articles or addiction. So if you feel that you have an addiction of some sort, then more vyasa will be more helpful. Another word for Sri Krishna is Yogeshwara, the Ishvara of yoga, or the God of uniting. Naturally then, anything that Yogeshwara shares will be yoga. That's why we've been classifying these sections of Bhagavad Gita as karma yoga, upasana yoga, or bhakti yoga, and soon jnana yoga. Within bhakti yoga, chapter 12, verse 9, Sri Krishna shares practice. Practice surrendering. When we practice, what initially was difficult becomes natural. And this is obvious. Our whole lives, we've lived by this. We shouldn't feel it's not going to work for surrender. In verse 10, if practicing surrender is too much, practice surrendering a part of who you are, and that is your actions. Zooming into this, whatever you identify with, you will practice for that entity. If you identify with your bed, you will practice tending to that bed. If you don't identify with the bed, suppose it's a hotel room, then you may not keep it as tidy or make it. You're not practicing. Those actions are not for that entity. Verse 11, if you find practicing surrendering actions to be difficult, then practice surrendering results. And this is obvious too. Results are not in our control. And the more relationships you have in life, the more people you interact with, the more clear one becomes that they're not in control. When I was living in a room by myself in the ashram, I was clear, I'm in control. Now, fast forward 15 years and meeting all of you. Now I know that I am not in control. And some of you, see, you're supporting me. Yes, Vivekji, you're not in control. And in verse 12, Shri Krishna shares, we have to grow up from action to vision. And this is not a new teaching. Throughout chapter 3, we hammered in. We may start with right actions, but this has to evolve to the right attitude. Those who act without thinking are like the entities I described earlier, 3 children and 2 cats. They act, but they don't know what they're acting for in reference to vision, who they are, what their legacy will be. Now in verse 13 to the end of this chapter, and I'm reminding you, this is the shortest chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We will complete this chapter next week. The word for God in Sanskrit is Bhagavan, like Bhagavan Rama, Bhagavan Hanumana. The etymology of the word Bhagavan is Bhaga, Van. Bhaga means virtues. Van means has or is. So Bhagavan is the most lovely word. Even calling it word is like an insult. Bhagavan means the one who has all virtues in all ways. And so the last portion of this chapter, Shri Krishna is sharing what these virtues are. He's sharing if we become bhagya, we become fortunate or we become virtuous, that is bhakti. You becoming a better person is bhakti. You don't need to know Sanskrit. You don't need to chant. All of those, let's call them, are benefits, but they're not mandatory. If you become more patient every day, and comparatively, Vivek knows some Sanskrit and some chanting, you are the bhakta, not me. You are superior, not me. And that's why I've reminded you a few times that Pujya Swami Tejomayananda shared. How does one know that they're a successful Balavar teacher or any sort of facilitator of self-development? That a student has a love for God that is more deep. And then I modify the language for us because some of us, for whatever reason, don't relate to God. If you have a deeper love for self-development, that means whoever helped you do that is successful. Because Bhagavan and becoming Bhagya are the same. Is that clear to all? I'm going to read one insight from Pujya Swami Chinmayananda about this section we're in, and then we'll move on to the next verse. Pujya Swami Chinmayananda shares, no other part in the whole Gita can be compared with the beauty of expression that we have in these stanzas, except perhaps the description of the person of steady wisdom that was found in chapter 2. And obviously what Pujya Swami Chinmayananda has shared is right, but I just want to add one condition there. When one is immersed in chapter 2, one is still really feeling stress and anxiety because it's the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Now, 10 chapters later from chapter 2, I hope we're all feeling less anxious, less stress. So now what is being taught, it means more to us, correct? It's like a relationship that's become more mature then everything that happens in that relationship is more meaningful. Verse 14. Santushta satatam yogi yatatma dhrida nishchayaha mayarpita mano buddhihi yo madbhaktassa me priyaha. Inhale deeply. Joy. Think it, say it, write it. The next value, santushta. This is value number 8. Technically, santushta means content. You already know that. I'm going to vyasa this, elaborate on this. It is being content first with what you have, and then that deepens to being content with who you are. And this follows that process, which is why I'm constantly encouraging everyone to care less about what they have or shift from what you have to who you are. See, if you're always feeling content about what you have and you don't go deeper, then it's like being content with the finite. And so you never touch the infinite. Okay? Shift out of what you have to who you are. Number 9, it goes as satatam yogi. For the sake of simplicity, you can just write satata. I believe in Hindi, there's a word satana, which means one who's constantly bothering you. So here, satata means one who is consistent. Consistent. I was earlier sharing with a seeker, and he was telling me that work is demanding, so his sadhana has become less. That person is here, and I'm winking at you in a mean way right now, okay? I see you smiling back at me now. And I said, why do you make sadhana N-A instead of N-O? Sadhana, or self-development, we sometimes make not applicable. I'm traveling, not applicable. I'm sick, not applicable. I didn't sleep enough, not applicable. NO is not optional. What is satata, or consistency? Where you delete NA and replace it with NO, which means it's not an option not to engage in sadhana. Meaningful mornings, is it NA or NO for you? Sometimes I wish it was NA, but still I'm here, correct? It's NO. Next, yata. Yata, like yatin, jatin, Justin. All of that has come from yata. And yata here means one who is directed. One who's directed. And the way we can practice this, I'm elaborating. Shri Krishna shares to Rishi Uddhava, a way not to be addicted is to practice out of sight, out of mind. If one has a problem with eating chocolate, if one has a problem with eating chocolate, then if there's not chocolate in my sight, then the propensity of me thinking about it is less. But if chocolate is everywhere, it's in sight, in mind. Now here's a very quick gauge for you to see how deep this control of articles is on us. When you're not well, or when you're tired, there's adverse conditions outside and inside. What does your mind think about? For me recently is, when I was not well, there were songs that kept on playing in my head. And I realized I listened to these songs too much, so I stopped listening to them. Now, last night we had a rough night over here, smoke alarms, high fevers and stuff like that. But now the music I've been listening to lately, that came to my mind. I've started to try to listen to music without words. That way the words Om Namo Narayanaya can be more clear. I hope I didn't confuse you. The recording is there. Re-listen to the recording. Next is Drida Nishchayaha. You can just write Nishchaya. Nishchaya means determination. And a way we can practice this is to think before you speak. And once you've spoken it, to follow through. Determination is being decisive. That means you've thought it, you said it, and now you're going to follow through. When I work with people in terms of service, I would rather them say, no, I can't help you, Vivekji, than for them to say, I can and not follow through. That is a waste of their potential and mine also. And finally, in this verse, this is number 12, the full terminology is Mayarpita Mano Buddhihi. You can write Arpita. The 12th value is Arpita. This phrase has come up and will come up many times. It's a good idea for a tattoo if you're thinking about one. Arpita here means offer. To offer. And it's sharing, offer your mind and intellect. And that's indicative of offering yourself. Start with offering what you have, but then offer yourself. To me, this is not a matter of faith. This is a matter of logic. I would say the average age of the seekers who are joining us, I'm going to put a number like 45. Who knows? Okay. If we've been alive for 45 years, we've offered so much to different relationships. And those relationships, they didn't reciprocate back. There's always that sense of disappointment. But with Sri Krishna, there will never be disappointment. That reciprocity will be 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. It is logical to offer all that you do and all that you are to Sri Krishna. This is how Vivek is operating. After 15 years of multiple levels of relationships, it is logical for me to live for the trust triangle. I am not a faithful person. I am, but I feel that I'm logical also. Yaha, the one who has these 12 bhagyas, madbhaktaha, they are my devotee. They are dedicated to me. And so, same priyaha, I feel they're dear. And that is incredible for Bhagwan to share this. See, if you're a slow runner and you see someone running fast and you think you're such a fast runner, that person doesn't care because you're slow. Who are you to gauge who's a fast runner? But if a really fast runner says you're a fast runner, then you feel like, wow. The great are the ones who are to gauge this. We all feel that we're bhaktas. But here Bhagwan is sharing, if you are doing this and becoming this, then you are my bhakta. There's your authority. This phrase will come throughout this chapter also. From inspiration to application, your recent application was to chart out all of these values. Now you have 12. Why? Insight in mind. Here is your application for this whole week now. One application for the whole week. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 11th section, Sri Krishna uses a very beautiful phrase called Mahabhaga, the one who's greatly fortunate, and he's referring to Rishi Uddhava. Because Rishi Uddhava is always engaged in Matkata. He's always listening to Sri Krishna, about Sri Krishna. In that case, we are Mahabhaga too, correct? But in the 10th section, he describes the Mahabhagas as trees. That trees are those that are dedicated to me. Trees are the ones who are dear to me. So your application is, for every value in this chapter, I want you to plant a tree. Every value in this chapter, you are to plant a tree. And I'm encouraging you to take a photograph of this planting too. That way there's more accountability. And this all relates to our community aspiration to plant 1,000 trees for Shri Krishna, because he feels they are his great devotees. So already 12 trees we are to have planted. There are more that are coming. Don't make this NA. I am personally asking you to do this. Make this NO, not optional. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be joy.